everybody. Welcome to Berean TV. I just wanted to do this short video whilst they're down there doing the sound check. Hopefully y'all can hear me. The Bible is plagiarized from Egypt or Kemet. And I've seen a lot of stuff online, people making comments, and I've made previous videos, people trying to compare the Osiris story with the Jesus story, and they're picking from Kersey Graves, people like Sarah Sutton Seti, Shakka, Ahmose, and Dr. Ray Hagan. I made another video about that earlier in the year, or a few months back, and the primary source that they use is Kersey Graves' World 16 Crucified Saviors. Later on, John G. Jackson picked it up with Christianity Before Christ. But the problem is, even Kersey Graves, who's an atheist with a PhD in history, he denies the fact that Kersey Graves can be used as a reliable source because he don't quote any primary sources for his work. So if nobody quotes primary sources, if he don't quote a primary source for his work, everybody that uses him, like a Chariot S, who recently died, and other people in the Zeitgeist movie, Peter Joseph, and a lot of people you may see on Sinetta TV, if they use Kersey Graves, or they're using sources that use Kersey Graves, the foundation is shaky. So if the foundation of the argument is shaky, or the whole premise can't stand. Now, the point I want to bring out with the Osiris story, that there's actually 5 stories down throughout time. Gerald Massey said Osiris had 12 disciples. Osiris walked on water. He was known as the bread of life. We don't have a primary source on that. So we can't use it. Scholarly speaking, you can't use it. I recently saw Shakka Ahmose debating with the House of David. They were out in this, I think they were on 44th and 7th Avenue in the city, and he was asking the Israelite, that Israelite camp, the House of David, he was asking them questions that they couldn't answer. Now the problem comes in with when we as fundamentalists, be it Hebrew Israelites, be it Christians, when we can't properly answer questions dealing with the Bible, we're looking crazy to the conscious community, to atheists, and to other believers or skeptics, because historically we don't understand our text. Now he asked the other Hebrew Israelite brother, Shakka Ahmose, was anything in the Bible, did anything in the Bible come from ancient Egypt or the principles of Mayat in Egypt or in ancient Kemet? And the brother's trying to say no. They're trying to act like this Bible just dropped down from heaven and from the prophets. But in all actuality, that's not how the Bible came about. The Bible came about in a 1600-year period. That's how come I want to do the Sunday seminary, so I can give people tools to begin to understand. I saw the Hebrew Israelite brothers telling them that God speaks Hebrew and Adam speaks Hebrew and the name of Moses is in Egypt. All of that stuff is not so. No Hebrew Israelite or Jew ever built a pyramid. We have to tell the truth. Sheikh Anta Diop told us that there was a mother tongue that came out of the interior of Africa, but we don't know if it was Hebrew. That's tradition of the rabbis saying that. Now, when it comes to the Book of the Dead, when it comes to the pyramid text, and it comes to other things, Acts 7:22 says that Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. So he was in the university, or he was initiated into the mystery schools. We cannot deny that. But now the problem is there a truth that came specifically through Hebrew Israelites from the Most High God? I've heard Richard Dawkins, Seti, and other people argue, how can the Most High God call a backwards people the Hebrew Israelite people and give his revelation to them, when there were the Assyrians and the Hittites and the Canaanites and the Egyptians and other people that were more advanced than them? We believe that the Most High God did that because he said he takes the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. So for Hebrew Israelites to try to act like they were so intellectual and they built pyramids, or they had the principle that the Egyptians had, that's not so. If we follow the storyline, when they got into Egypt, there were only 70 people. They were a small clan of people, and they came there because they were in lack. They were in need. We have to admit what the texts tell us. We can't make the Bible say something that doesn't. Now, when they got to even building Solomon's temple, they weren't even qualified. They had to get master builders, master masons from the outside to help build Solomon's temple. So when it comes down to that, we have to be honest. We don't know that Hebrew was the original language. When it comes down to it, the texts in Egypt are older than the Bible. When the Bible began to be compiled, it was 1000 BCE. Now, I have no problem with that because I understand the history and I know it comes from an oral tradition. So I have no problem with that. In the beginning, people worshiped the Most High God. They weren't like people in Egypt that had to observe the universe and nature, and they came to an understanding of the Most High God through what the Bible calls natural revelation. The heavens declare the glory of God. That's natural revelation, and there are many Egyptian priests that followed that. But when it comes down to it, there were Enoch and there were prophets in Mesopotamia and other places that had revelation of the Most High God, until we came to a place in the scripture that they call the Tower of Babel, where the Most High God confused their languages because of their behavior and what they were trying to do. We have to establish that. So when we say certain things, the Egyptians had the belief in the afterlife and the underworld. They're trying to make it sound like Osiris came and he was a Messiah and he was a deliverer, and he was resurrected and he was a deliverer to deliver the people. There are two trains of thought here. The Hebrews sacrificed animals and they were waiting for the promised Messiah to deliver them as a people. Anybody that studied Kemet know that the Egyptians never looked for a coming Messiah. This was not part of their theology like it was the Hebrews. But you'll have people on the internet to give you the impression that the Egyptians were waiting for a resurrected Messiah. They were waiting for a coming one. The prophets of the Hebrews spoke something totally different than the Egyptian priest. But the problem we have is the 10 Commandments, the negative confessions, and the wisdom writings. I'm going to try to explain something a lot of people don't know. What we call copyrighted material did not exist. When we interpret scripture and understand scripture, we're attempting to understand scripture in light of modern thought, but that's not right. We have to go back. Copywritten material didn't exist back then. So Solomon, the king of Israel, because he had bread, he did like Chinese kings, Babylonian kings, and Ethiopian kings. When a king would hear a wise saying, he would take that unto himself. So every proverb Solomon didn't write. There was things that he heard and he said, I'm going to bring that into my archive. I'm going to bring that into my wisdom literature. The Chinese did the same thing. The Babylonians did the same thing. If it's a wise saying, a wise man will pick up a wise saying and he will listen, I'm going to use that. I heard Ayana Van Zant say something. I'm not really feeling her like that, but the statement that she made was a good wise saying, and I'm going to use that. I'm going to incorporate that when I'm teaching or doing somebody or teaching somebody. That illustration was a good illustration. So according to history, yes, there were wisdom teachings that spread in what Diop called the Fertile Crescent, or that two crescent theory, all in what we call Egypt or North Africa, whatever you want to call it. There were wisdom teachings that were spread. There were Israelites that had their share of wisdom teachings, and the and the king Solomon, he put that inside of his writings, which became the Proverbs. And there's nothing wrong with that. But now, another thing that people have problem with are the 10 Commandments and the negative confessions. How can the negative confessions say not to kill, and that Moses said that he came off the mountain with commandments, thou shalt not kill? You have to remember that there was knowledge that was spread out from the Most High God before man fell into his situation. Some other people understood that thou shalt not kill. It just didn't come with Moses. They knew that that was wrong 4, 5, 7, 2,000 years before Moses was born. When Cain killed Abel, he understood that he did something wrong outside of the law. Outside of the 10 Commandments, he already knew that he did something wrong. Even when we look in Exodus 20 and we start dealing with the 10 Commandments, God just didn't give them the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. It just didn't come down. He told them to remember. the Sabbath day. So apparently Enoch, apparently some other people were already keeping the Sabbath from the time of creation, because that was something that was established with the Most High God. I'm going to get into it later on. I don't know. They're trying to set up down there, but there's some things we have to understand. I saw Shakka Ahmose, and he was getting into it with the Israelites, and the Israelites, they just that camp, that house of David, the elder that was talking to Shakka Ahmose wasn't ready for the questions. They just weren't ready for it. So we have to study history, but we have to study scripture, but we also have to study history, and we have to understand timelines. And that's a problem. Nobody's claiming that pyramids were built by Hebrew Israelites or Jews. We have to understand the highest science that existed. It existed among the priests in Egypt. Nobody is denying that. When Abraham came to Egypt with his wife, according to the scripture, he never attempted to preach or to teach the Pharaoh anything about the Most High God. They already had a developed religion. They already had the book of the coming forth by day. It already existed. So let's not believe in magic because we believe in Holy Writ. We're looking crazy to other people that understand timeline and history. Now, I don't go with everything Shakka Ahmose say and Ray Hagen and SETI and certain things that they say about Jesus, because they don't have historical proof. There's so many other scholars, even Dr. Ben, go with the existence of Moses. Shakka Ahmose said, I don't even believe he existed. But we have to understand that Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. The Egyptians had a nature religion or a belief that they studied the universe, and they took certain principles and they believed that they could know the Most High God through those principles. Now, I believe what Freemasons teach. I believe what Helen Blavatsky teach. I believe what Adolf Hitler believed, that those Egyptian priests, they spoke to people, the high-ranking priests. We had different class. The lower people, the regular people, they were not involved in the true religion of the priest of Egypt. Despite what anybody tells you, if you could not afford a copy of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, if you could not afford to mummify the people that loved you, the family members, that religion and that belief and that system was for the aristocrats. That was for Imhotep, and that was for King Tut, and that was for various pharaohs that can afford it. That's the reason that we can only find the bodies of the pharaohs and aristocrats. You can find the body of no regular Egyptian farmer. Excuse me. Now, why is that? He couldn't afford to be embalmed. He couldn't afford to be in the religion. He couldn't afford a copy of the Book of the Dead. It's just like it is now. They were shopping the religion. The pharaohs didn't care about everybody to spread a copy of the Book of the Dead to everybody, to make everybody mummified. They didn't care about them. So we have to understand that, and a lot of people have that part twisted, and they want to give us the religion of the pharaoh. But the priest and the pharaoh, they follow what we would call Masonic thought. They believed in what others would call the white brotherhood. They believed in being in contact with spirits or beings or star people from another realm, and they dealt with those people. And Hitler believed the same thing. The New Age movement believed the same thing. But that's what we call second heaven spirituality. The white folk with blue eyes and blonde hair, the white brotherhood as they call it, Blavatsky and other ones call it the white brotherhood, and they live in the second heaven. These are spiritual beings, but they are not, they don't come directly from the Most High God. The Most High God, or what Jesus himself called my Father's house, those beings don't dwell in that place. That's how come as Christians we say they worship the devil, or they worship principalities, or they worship fallen spirits. The Egyptians did it, the Hindus did it. They all worshiped beings in the second heaven. This is why people want to have seances in Africa. Many of our people spoke to other spirits, and they spoke to the star people, and they spoke to dead spirits, the ancient grandmother, your aunt, the ancient kings, and they did a lot of stuff that was not of the Most High God. That's why we say we don't follow that train of thought, and we don't follow that religion and that belief. They're getting it jumping right now. If you like what you heard, subscribe. Y'all go to that link and join up with that Sunday seminary. Scroll all the way down to the comments and you hit the